Welcome to you. This is MisterDragonbeard. Hopefully we'll get to know each other a little bit better over the next while. This is the Apostasy Now channel. Normally, it'll be dedicated, not to this sort of thing, but it'll be dedicated to collaborations, stuff with our guests, and of course my co-host, Smashlock. Normally this stuff will go on my channel, MisterDragonbeard. What I'm going to talk about today, hopefully in brief, is about the first time on social media I've posted about this Colin Kaepernick, a football player who's not too bright and has had it obviously too well his whole life. Not to take away from his dedication and early performance, which has been lackluster, I'm told, but irrelevant to all of that. The fact that he seems to think that the national anthem is something for him to basically take a poke at in order to promote his own political ideas during football games. Now, first and foremost, I am tired of both conservatives, and especially liberals, immediately responding with, he has the right to do this. Well, yes, he has the right. But, the stupid thing is I haven't heard anyone say he doesn't. It has nothing to do with the discussion. Of course he has the right. Just like the league, if he's in violation of contract, can fire him. And that's precisely what I would get my lawyers to be doing right now.
For the land and of the free.
Overnight, San Francisco 49ers quarterback Colin Kaepernick refusing to stand during the national anthem again. This time, he took a knee right behind hundreds of service members being honored on Military Appreciation Night. As the crowd and players stand, you can see Kaepernick kneeling on the sideline. Teammate Eric Reed joining him.
Going to stand.
And he's receiving heavy boos here.
The crowd booing every time he took a snap.
He's entitled to his opinion. We fought for that. I just think he's a jerk.
And now the quarterback sparking new controversy for wearing these socks, showing police officers as pigs.
I'm pretty sure everyone else understands the obligation to go out there for the good of the fans, the environment. Is an expectation they knew going into this would be a part of it, and none of them seem to complain or take issue at that point when they signed their contracts that, the hardest part of their job would be standing up during the national anthem.
You can do it! Cut his fucking head off!
Okay, full disclosure. I'm a Canadian, and I've never served in the military. These 2 points seem to come up, and it doesn't matter because my opinion still stands. I'm not anti-military. I don't believe there's any unified perspective of the military servicemen on this issue, except for perhaps freedom of speech, which, again, like I said, is not an issue here. So we're really going to be about criticizing him just the same way as I think it's important to criticize bad ideas from religious ideologies. Kaepernick has really dangerous ideas that whether he believes them or not, he seems to. Fool is spreading them. And so he's a useful idiot for an ideology that can sow discord and unrest and even in the end violence, as we've seen from Black Lives Matter. That's the ideology, of course, I'm speaking of. And so I'm going to be taking us through a few videos here just to provoke some thought about the fact that criticizing him is not wrong. It is not shutting him down. It is, in fact, serving a critical purpose, which is he full of shit? Is he promoting something positive or negative?
It's things that have gone on in this country for years and years and have never been addressed, and they need to be.
Will you continue, Colin, to sit? Will you continue to sit?
Yes, I'll continue to sit. I'm going to continue to stand with the people that are being oppressed. If
you do not listen to her, your event will be shut down right now.
Okay. All right, so we are trying to be reasonable. We are trying to be reasonable.
We are trying.
We're going to let you on the mic. We are going to give you the mic.
I will speak when everyone is ready. I'll wait. Thank you for showing me how Black Lives Matter. Continue.
There's a lot of things that need to change. One specifically is police brutality. There's people being murdered unjustly and not being held accountable. Cops are getting paid leave for killing people.
Well, it's just crazy talk. That's ignorance in its purest form.
The officers had the street blocked off. And we were standing on the corner getting ready to cross the street to go up to where my car was parked. And we heard a shot, and we all looked. Because we didn't know what it was, because it's so close to the 4th of July. And we all kind of looked, and it was a pause, and there was a second shot. And the police officer, I saw him, kind of tall, hefty, white guy, bald. I remember seeing him. And that second shot, he kind of, as he was going down, he said he has a gun. Run. I'm sorry.
Fry like bacon, pigs in the blanket. Fry like bacon.
I'm sorry. He said he has a gun. He has a gun. Run. And my kids started running.
We're chanting, what do we want? Dead cops. When do we want it? Now.
And I wanted to make sure that they were all in front of me, so they started running up the block, and I was running behind them. And I felt the bullet. I don't know if it bounced off the ground or what, but I felt it when it hit me in the back of my leg. And my son, Andrew, had turned around to grab me. Because I guess he turned around to see where I was, and he went to grab me, but I had already been shot. So I tackled him, and pushed him into the street. And I think he hit the car, and we ended up in between the car and the curb. And I just laid on top of him.
All right, look, we're looking back in Dallas, Texas. This is disturbing. I'm not sure what we're seeing, but it looks from this vantage point like an officer down.
Oh.
We're not sure. We are not sure. This is my speculation as I look at the screen. Stand by on that. I don't know what I'm seeing. And this is the control room trying to tell me they have a better vantage point. So I'm sorry for the speculation. The police are working on.
Oh my God.
We're all seeing this together. This is not clear. It is not clear. It's not clear to me from what we're seeing, but the situation is escalating. That officer is not moving. Look, we're not going to show dead cops or dead bodies.
And police officers had started coming up the block. And one of them, I heard him when he said, "Is anybody hit?" My son said no, because he didn't know I was shot. And I was saying yes, but I wasn't saying it loud enough so my son could hear me, because I didn't want him to hear me. And the officer said it again kind of loud, and I said, "Yes, sir, I'm hitting my leg."
Is that a cop dead? That's a cop down. Dude, that's a cop down. Straight down. Dude, that's a cop down. Yeah. There's 4 cops down. 4? Yeah, he shot 7 times. It's a dude? No, it's a sniper from up here somewhere. It's a sniper? You hear the shot? Get down. Get down. Get down. That's what I'm trying to tell you. It's a sniper. Get down. Pete, there's a sniper out here. There's a sniper. He shot 4 cops. You hear it. He's shooting right now. Can y'all see him? Get back. Get back.
And that officer jumped on top of me and covered me and my son. And there was another one at our feet, and there was another one over our head. And there was several of them lined against the wall over there, and they stayed there with us. And
they're being oppressed.
Fry like bacon, pigs in the blanket.
I saw another officer. Get shot right there in front of me again. That was 2.
He's down.
We're chanting, what do we want? Dead cops. When do we want it? Now.
I'm sorry. I don't know if the shooter moved, but they were able to get us up, get me up, help me to get me up, and put me in the back of the police car. And, another officer was in the back of the car, and my son. And that car was riddled with bullets. I'm thankful that that officer didn't get hit as he was driving us. My son.
They're being oppressed.
As far as I know, it's like when we pulled into the hospital, it was the police car came in on rims only. Because they pulled me out the car and they had to lay me on the ground there because there wasn't a gurney available, and there was another officer, I think it was the officer that had gotten shot in front of me. He was on a gurney, headed into the hospital, and they got one, and I was still praying, and I was still praying in the hallway into the room, just kept praying for everybody, for my sons to be safe, for the officers to be safe, because it was, I had never been in a situation like that before. There was hundreds of rounds. Just, I had never heard anything like that before. It was just shots all around us. But I'm thankful. I'm so thankful for the Dallas Police Department and whoever else. ATF, I don't know who was down there, but I'm thankful for all of them because they had no regard for their own life. They stayed there with us. They surrounded my son and I. And I'm so thankful for that because all I could do was just lay on top of him and just pray.
There's a lot of things that need to change. One specifically is police brutality. There's people being murdered unjustly and not being held accountable. Cops are getting paid leave for killing people.
I'm sorry that it happened. I'm sorry that that person thought that that would be okay, that he thought it would, or that it would solve something. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry that they lost their lives. But I'm thankful. I'm so thankful.
He talks about the police as if they have a widespread violence problem against black people or people of color, whatever the going expression is these days. This has been debunked by many people who are good with statistics. You can go on YouTube, you can find this very easily. They use statistics straight out of reliable sources. For instance, information from the FBI to debunk the idea black people are being slaughtered by cops is simply not true. Further, this type of thing invokes even more hatred and violence and division because it makes people have the perception, the lens, whenever they meet an officer, this guy's out to get me. And whenever something goes wrong, no matter what the situation, the explanation is the cop was out to get me. This is absolutely working against everyone's best interest. I think it's full of shit, as much as the KKK is full of shit. I agree completely with one of your own sheriffs down there who gets a lot of flack. I'm going to use a clip of his too, because I have to say, though I disagree with some of his perspectives, I think you need more officers like him willing to speak out. And a lot of black Americans, if you just take the time to listen, want nothing to do with Kaepernick or Black Lives Matter.
What it sounds like to me is that you're accusing me of violence and supporting a narrative that I'm not necessarily in support of. And if that's what you're accusing me of violence, then you can leave. That's not true. I don't support violence of any type against police officers, against anyone. So if you're accusing me of that, then you're welcome to leave. But if you want to have a conversation, I am more than willing to welcome a conversation with you. I don't disagree with you about there is a narrative across the country that could be harming police officers. But we don't know right now, as someone who's in law enforcement, if that was the actual cause of it. Go ahead.
Let me ask you this. Do we know that generally the American law enforcement officers are racist? Do we know this?
Go on.
I asked a question.
Do I know American general law enforcement are racist? I don't think anyone is accusing. If you're insinuating that people are accusing or saying that law enforcement across this country as a whole are racist, then your assumption is wrong.
First of all, this whole anti-police rhetoric is based on a lie. There is no data, and you know this. There is no data, there is no research that proves any of that nonsense. None. Even
you'd have to be more specific about what data and what nonsense you're talking about.
That law enforcement officers treat black males different than white males in policing in these urban centers.
There is data that supports.
There is not data.
No. The president spoke about it. Cedric Alexander, who is a law
The president has
enforcement
been
officer,
lying about it. He said it again the other day when he said black males are 2 times more likely to be shot by a law enforcement officer than white males. Don, that is a lie.
The violent riot several years ago in Ferguson and Baltimore now drawing praise from President Obama. Praise. The president thanking the leaders of the Black Lives Matter movement, thanking them for their efforts.
We've also got some young people here who are making history as we speak, led many of the protests that took place there and shined a light on the injustice that was happening. People like DeRay Kesson, who's done some outstanding work mobilizing in Baltimore around these issues.
Leaders from that movement were honored guests at the White House in honor of Black History Month.
You know, the African American community is not just making this up. And it's not just something being politicized. It's real, and there's a history behind it, and we have to take it seriously.
Now let's look at arrest rates for blacks for all crimes, and more specifically for violent crime. And what do we find? The arrest rate of blacks for all crimes in the United States is 28%. That's eerily similar to the rate at which black people are shot by police, which you'll remember, according to the Washington Post data, is 26%. And the arrest rates for blacks for all types of violent crime are even higher. So could it be that black people are being shot in proportion to the level of contact they have with police? Remember, blacks are being shot at twice the rate of the black population, but they are committing crimes at the same rate and even higher for violent crimes. According to FBI data, in 2014, blacks murdered 446 whites, whilst whites murdered 187 blacks. So 2.4 times the number of whites were killed by blacks as blacks were killed by whites. But when we adjust for population, we find that blacks murder whites at almost 12 times the rate that whites murder blacks. And in relation to violent crime, according to the National Crime Victimization Survey, blacks committed 5 times the number of violent crimes on whites as whites committed on blacks. And when we adjust those numbers for population, blacks are almost 27 times more likely to commit violent crime against whites than whites against blacks.
They're being oppressed.
The president has been lying about it.
It's the basic truth of the human condition that everybody lies. The only variable is about what.
So we're going to talk a little bit, show a video about what a useful idiot is in political speak. The communists are really big on this, but for instance, Doris Lessing, who's able to actually go to these places, used to be in her younger days. Well, hopefully you know who she is. In her younger days, she was an avid communist, and her perspectives on when her world got shattered about the lies that fools are used to spread and propagate dangerous ideas for people who just want to get their own way. Take a look at some of the insanity that hateful rhetoric on a widespread scale can begin to foment. I mean, this is working right against everything that, and here's another thing, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., I'm going to show a clip of him and him specifically talking about nonviolence. It is a highly disciplined movement that he had. It takes far more to be actively resisting in a nonviolent way than to be violent. Violence is something any animal can do, and it's not going to achieve your positive goals. That is utopia you have in your head. Like if we shit on cops, they're all going to respect us. If we attack white people in the street, we'll all get along. We'll get the nice jobs that we want. I don't know what the thinking is here.
The useful idiots, the leftists who are idealistically believing in the beauty of Soviet socialist or communist or whatever system, when they get disillusioned, they become the worst enemies That's why my KGB instructors specifically made a point, never bother with leftists. Forget about these political prostitutes. Aim higher. This was my instruction. Try to get into large circulation, established conservative media. Reach, filthy rich movie makers, intellectuals, so-called academic circles. Cynical, egocentric people who can look into your eyes with angelic expression and tell you a lie. These are the most recruitable people, people who lack moral principles, who are either too greedy or too suffer from self-importance. They feel that they matter a lot. These are the people who KGB wanted very much to recruit. Suffer from self-importance. They feel that they matter a lot.
He said, I'm going to tell you that everything you have heard on this trip is nonsense. The truth is quite different.
Doris Lessing, winner of the Nobel Prize for Literature and once a devout communist. In 1952, she was part of a delegation visiting the Soviet Union and being shown all that Stalin's minders wanted them to see. Then one old man spoke out.
Now, for him to say this at all was brave of him, to put it mildly. Everybody around him is all very jolly and upbeat and nice and sweet. The thing was, he was completely out of line with anything going on. For me, it was shattering.
So would Doris Lessing now say she had been Stalin's useful idiot?
Yes, I would. That's what my role was. I was taken around and shown things as a useful idiot. I would then go away and say, oh, it's very nice and it's all so sweet, which now I can't understand myself thinking that, but I did, you see. I can't understand why I was so gullible.
Hey, they beating up every white person. They jumping every white person. Who they beating up? Who they beating up? Who they chasing? Who they chasing? They out here. They folks. They not playing. Man, no white person come down Sherman. He white. Beat this shit, bitch.
Whether it will be possible to contain the Negro people within this framework of nonviolence if we continue to have more of the kinds of demonstrations that we had in Birmingham.
Well, I think these brutal methods used by the Birmingham police force and other police forces will naturally arouse the eye of Negroes, and I think there is the danger that some will be so aroused that they will retaliate with violence. I think, though, that we can be sure that the vast majority of Negroes who engage in the demonstrations and who understand the nonviolent philosophy will be able to face dogs and all of the other brutal methods that are used without retaliating with violence, because they understand that one of the first principles of nonviolence is a willingness to be the recipient of violence while never inflicting violence upon another. And none of the demonstrators in Birmingham engaged in aggressive or retaliatory violence. It was always someone on the sideline who had never been in the demonstrations and probably had never been in a nonviolent workshop. So I think it will depend on the extent to which we can extend the teaching of the philosophy of nonviolence to the larger community rather than those who are engaged in the demonstrations.
Well, how do you maintain this type of discipline, control, and dignity?
We do a great deal in terms of teaching both the theoretical aspects of nonviolence as well as the practical application. We even have courses where we go through the experience of being roughed up. And this kind of socio-drama has proved to be very helpful in preparing those who are engaged in demonstrations. The other thing is...
Does this even include the children?
Yes, it includes the children. In Birmingham, where we had several young we had some as young as 7 years old who participated in the demonstrations, and they were in the workshops. In fact, none of them went out for a march. None of them engaged in any of the demonstrations before going through this kind of teaching session. So that through this method, we're able to get the meaning of nonviolence over. And I think there is a contagious quality in a movement like this when everybody talks about nonviolence and being faithful to it and being dignified in your resistance. It tends to get over to the larger group because this becomes a part of the vocabulary of the movement.
But I will say this, I'm not convinced most black people, and I think this is borne out by polls and a lot of information out there, most black people want nothing to do with this. This is not a statement about black people. It's a statement about a small group of people. You know, the supporters of Black Lives Matter come in all shades.
His reasoning for not standing up during the national anthem is as follows. I'm not going to stand up and show pride in a flag for a country that oppresses black people and people of color. To me, this is bigger than football, and it would be selfish on my part to look the other way. There are bodies in the street and people getting paid leave and getting away with murder. So basically, he's one of these guys that believes in, you know, the whole hands up, don't shoot. You know, he didn't do nothing. He believes in that. He believes in the whole Black Lives Matter mantra. This is why I call them Black Lies, because the lies they perpetuate, people like Colin Kaepernick will believe.
There's a lot of things that need to change. One specifically is police brutality. There's people being murdered unjustly and not being held accountable. Cops are getting paid leave for killing people.
Our hostage negotiator did an exceptional job getting this suspect to talk before he died, during the hours of negotiating that eventually broke down. And I want to share with you some of the comments from this suspect. The suspect said he was upset about Black Lives Matter. He said he was upset about the recent police shootings. The suspect said he was upset at white people. The suspect stated he wanted to kill white people, especially white officers. The suspect stated that we will eventually find the IEDs.
Why do white people have a right to affirm their life?
Because all lives have value.
Really? How so? Why does white life have value?
Well, I think my
for
life
who?
has
White? No, excuse me. For who? Our argument is that white life is wrong.
Why?
Our argument is that we should never affirm white life. That your argument of just affirming all life in general is not good, especially not good for black people when white life itself is based off of black
supremacy. Why shouldn't we affirm my life?
You're probably white.
I am white. Why shouldn't we affirm my life?
I don't understand why I have to care about your life anyway. There's no ethical reason as to why white people deserve to live. Affirming black life means that white death has to occur. That's why you should lose this debate and why your life ain't worth affirming.
Can I kill myself, like, under your arguments?
Sure.
Okay. So, should Odie kill himself?
I don't see why not.
Why should we do that? How does that help?
It's ethical.
How is it ethical? We all have some form or another of privilege. Why does that mean we should kill ourselves?
Because you have white privilege.
There's a lot of things that need to change.
When it looks like you're going to get cut, when it looks like you have no job, you're going to now say, I'm not standing up for this flag. Well, let me tell you something, Colin Kaepernick. If you live in the United States and you don't believe in the flag and you don't want to stand up for the flag where people died for you to have the right to sit there and make millions of dollars while sitting on the bench, then maybe you should leave. Maybe anyone who's in America and you do not believe in the values of America and learn how to give your disagreements with America in a structured way, Because again, I don't believe in everything that America does, but I don't understand this idea of black people in America talking about how they hate America, but they won't go nowhere else.
Let's look at some of the military personnel who do have issues with this, because I think it's valid, even though they want you to have the freedom of speech. It's valid to say, why was I, or why am I overseas, or even here working my ass off at any time? I might be putting my life on the line and suffering. And finally, I think I'll just leave us off with food for thought, a scene that I think touched an entire nation, maybe the world, in appreciation for the soldiers and the stuff they go through and how they have a hard time dealing with it. And we don't really pay attention to their sacrifice and how we should be more appreciative and show it. There are many ways that we can protest. It doesn't have to be this way. This seems like a convenient way for him to get attention. You know, where's the discipline? Where's the sacrifice? You had to do it to become a football player. Surely you can show it somewhere else. So the scene's acted out. It's fiction, but it's based on reality. And a lot of people really connected with it. I'm Mr. Dragonbeard. I'm out.
And I come back to the world, and I see all those maggots at the airport protesting me, spitting, calling me baby killer and all kinds of vile crap. Who are they to protest me, huh? Who are they? Unless they've been me and been there and know what the hell they're yelling about.
It was a bad time for everyone, Rambo. It's all in the past now.
For you! For me, civilian life is nothing. In the field, we had a code of honor. You watch my back, I watch yours. Back here, there's nothing.
You're the last of an elite group. Don't end it like this.
Back there, I can fly a gunship. I can drive a tank. I was in charge of $1 million equipment. Back here, I can't even hold a job. Fucking guys! Ah! I can't. Oh, just. Oh, God. Where is everybody? God, I just.